Hey, welcome to Chillin' on the Mountain. Today we're going to answer the age-old question. Can Protestants be more cringy than Latter-day Saints? Watch the video today and find out. Yeah? It's like, no. What he's talking about is this book is going to bring you closer to Jesus Christ than any other book. And he's absolutely right. Okay, so real quick. Duh. Welcome to Chillin' on the Mount. So today I'm going to be reacting to this video. This is called The Secrets of Mormonism Exposed. And this is from a group that's called Living Waters. I think I've seen some of their videos. One of the guys sounds like he's from like South Africa or New Zealand or Australia, somewhere in the southern hemisphere. I'm going to watch this and just kind of give you my live thoughts.
Are you a good person? Have you ever lied? What happens after some dies? You ever stolen anything? Trust in Christ. A teenage boy named Joseph Smith Jr. said he had a vision while he was praying in the woods. According to the official account, he said he was visited in the 1820s by God the Father and Jesus Christ, who told him that Christianity had become corrupt, that all the churches were wrong, their creeds were an abomination, and he shouldn't join any of them.
Okay. So to start off, I mean, there's a few things I could nitpick with. For one, there's no official or unofficial account. There's 9 different accounts. One of them is canonized. That's probably what he's talking about, but none of them are considered, at least to my knowledge, as unofficial. They're just, different accounts. The canonized one was written expressly for a larger audience, whereas these other ones were either like journal entries or him talking with a person or a smaller group of people. In terms of these other churches and them, their creeds being an abomination, I mean, some of them clearly, yeah. But this notion of an apostasy, like, this shouldn't be an odd thing to Protestants. It's odd that I see pushback from Protestants on this notion of apostasy when their entire faith tradition is rooted on the basis of there having been an apostasy, hence the Reformation. I mean, you wouldn't be protesting the church if it hadn't fallen away. But anyway, let's continue on here.
3 years later, Joseph was visited by an angel named Moroni.
Yeah, here's the
He told
guy.
him where to find some buried golden plates that would explain the true gospel and tell him about the history of the American Indians. These plates were supposedly written in Reformed Egyptian. So he had to translate them into English. It became known as the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ.
Okay, so once again, a few things wrong. So it wasn't like, excuse me, it wasn't like Joseph, like, 4 years later was led to this hill. He had gone there once a year, every single year on the same day for those 4 years. So that's one minor detail. The other thing that, the Book of Mormon doesn't purport to be a history of all Native Americans. Only a certain group of people who came here from Jerusalem and interacted with people, and a group of people before them. But it doesn't purport to be a history of all Native Americans. I know that there are Latter-day Saints for a long time who believe that, but that's based on really more tradition and not a careful reading of the text. If you read what the Book of Mormon actually says, it makes it clear that it's not talking about everybody. Now, one quick caveat to that is that the promises given to the people called Lamanites in the Book of Mormon, those promises do apply to all Native Americans, not just those who are descendants of Laman. And that's kind of a complicated thing, and we could get into that someday. But
With that as a backdrop, now let's look at what Mormons believe and where they get their teaching from. His followers are known as Mormons, and they have taught some very interesting things, such as that if it weren't for Joseph Smith, nobody would be saved.
If it had not
the
been
ominous
for Joseph
music.
Smith and the Restoration, there would be no salvation. There is no salvation outside the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So I'm not familiar with that specific quote, but my guess is what they're talking about is priesthood keys, which were given through Joseph Smith.
Mormons get their beliefs from 5 main sources. The Book of Mormon, which Joseph Smith said is the most correct of any book on earth. Second, the Doctrine and Covenants, which
The Book of Mormon is the most correct book on earth in terms of if you live by its principles, you'll get closer to Christ. You know, when you read the whole quote, it actually makes a little more sense. Some people, they read this, the first part of that Joseph Smith quote, that the Book of Mormon is the most correct book on earth, and they think, oh, it must mean grammar or like, I don't know, syntax or whatever. It's like, no, what he's talking about is this book is going to bring you closer to Jesus Christ than any other book, and he's absolutely right.
which is a book mostly about theology.
D&C.
Third, the Pearl of Great Price. Fourth, the King James Bible, insofar as it is translated correctly, which, for the average Mormon, means the Bible cannot be trusted entirely.
Okay. Okay, so first off, we're not KJV onlyists. Like we use the King James Bible for lots of reasons, but it's not like we only use that Bible. I study from every translation I can get access to. I usually use a website that gives you multiple translations in one. And you know, I've taught in Sunday school from other Bibles. I've seen other Bibles quoted on, you know, sacrament talks, even in general conference, I believe. And so it's not like it's still kind of rare, but it's not like we're KJV onlyists. That's the first point. I would say we believe in the Bible with a preference to the KJV, but it's not even that we see it as the most accurate either, because Joseph Smith, I believe he said that it was the Tyndale Bible that he thought was the most accurate. Maybe, I want to say it was that one. I could get it wrong. Either way, that's the first point. Second point here is that he talks about translated correctly, which, I mean, doesn't every Christian believe that? Doesn't every Bible believer believe that? This is why we have hundreds of Bibles that are out there. You know, if just in English alone, there's easily dozens of translations, and they seem to keep pumping out new ones as time goes on. They wouldn't be doing that if translation didn't matter. Of course translation matters, and so I've always been befuddled by people being upset at that that caveat, which by the way exists for the Book of Mormon. It's just implicit that we believe the Book of Mormon was translated, not perfectly, but correctly. And there are people who believe the Bible was perfectly translated. And so this article of faith is sort of pushing back against that specific belief, which this person in the video probably holds. And it's just a belief that does not objectively hold up to scrutiny. That's just the reality, you know, and that's not to say that the Bible isn't inspired, that's not to say that it's not the Word of God, but to declare it perfect, or to say that the translation of it doesn't matter, is just factually incorrect. And then the last thing here, you know, which for your average Mormon means that the Bible is not reliable. Like, how does he know what the average Latter-day Saint thinks? What is he basing this on? Does he, like, live with them? Does he have an LDS wife? Does he go to our church? Does he interact with us much at all? Or is all of his experience with Latter-day Saints coming from other pastors and, like, maybe ex-members and stuff he reads online? Now, it is true that we see certain aspects of the Bible certainly being, I don't know about unreliable, but imperfect. And again, this is something that's just objectively true. You know, I could point you to Christian scholars who could show you, like, oh yes, this passage was almost certainly textually changed for theological reasons. Christian scholars saying this. And so I just find it such an odd thing that they take such great offense. It's like the tradition of Bible infallibility is so emotionally powerful that all reason and the very text right in front of you, it's like, can't be accepted. I don't get it. Anyway, moving on.
The ultimate authority in the Mormon Church comes from the living Mormon apostles and prophets, especially the president, who is considered to be the voice of God on earth.
So the ultimate authority is actually God, but, you know, whatever.
Kind of like a Mormon pope, and he can overturn any teaching of a previous president, which is not uncommon. Let's now look at what they teach about God.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot there that's like two truths and a lie kind of thing. Yeah, I just want to go. I'm only 3 minutes in and I'm already stopping it. So I'm just going to keep going here.
Smith said
James White.
in what's called the King Follet Funeral Discourse, one of his last teachings before he was killed in the cart. He said, "We have imagined and supposed that God has been God from all eternity. I will refute that idea and take away the veil so that you may see." When he refuted the idea that God had eternally been God, he forever separated his followers from biblical Christianity. Until Mormonism can repudiate that belief, there is no way that Mormonism can even begin to consider biblical Christianity.
Okay,
And
I'll let
so
him finish.
when we talk about the biblical Jesus, we have to step back and say, first we start with an eternal God, who in Psalm 90 verse 2, before the mountains were brought forth, wherever thou hast formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. So when we talk about Jesus being God, and we point to the passages on the deity of Christ, which a Mormon will accept, they believe Jesus is a God. He is the God of the Old Testament, just a different God than Elohim. They have two different gods at that point. We need to emphasize we are talking about an eternal God who created all things, who is not himself created. He is not himself one of the spirits of men.
Okay, but Dr. White, or yeah, I'll call him Dr. White. He should know better than to say or at least imply that Latter-day Saints think Jesus is a created being. And going further, what was he talking about before that? Oh, King Follet stuff. So real quick on that, the part of King Follet that he's citing is easily the most quoted part. It's also the least historically reliable part. So that there's a video that just recently came out. It's great. Robert Boylan and Blake Ostler on scriptural Mormonism, and they discuss a really good in-depth reading of all the records we have, because it turns out we actually have multiple records of the Sermon on the Grove and the King Follet, and so we could actually compare these. And Ostler has done this, and he and Boylan discuss in really good detail what's actually being said, and it's a lot more along the lines of Jesus being a good example. Jesus was God in the Old Testament. He comes down, he empties himself of divinity during his mortality, then he takes it up again as he's resurrected, and in doing so gains glory. Because remember, for Latter-day Saints, God is eternally self-surpassing. He's continually growing. He doesn't just stop. He's not static. And so this is what Joseph was talking about in Sermon on the Grove and King Follet, where the Father also went through a mortal ministry, a mortal probation, just like the Son did. This is why Jesus says that he can't do anything of himself but that what he sees the Father do, because the Father did the exact same thing. So what Ostler talks about is how when Joseph is saying that God isn't God from all eternity, he's saying because at one point he was a man just like everyone else, and it's subtle, but anyway, I'll refer you to that video. They do a much better job of explaining it.
Interestingly enough, Mormons believe that Jesus is Jehovah.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when you go in the Old Testament, Jehovah creates the spirits of men. Zechariah 12:1. In Colossians chapter 1, Paul describes Jesus and says that he is the creator of all things. Visible, invisible, principalities, powers, dominions, or authorities, all things created by him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things exist, consist, hold together.
Yeah, we believe that. Jesus is the creator. And pretty much the way it works, you have the Father who's the Most High, and he's got the Son who pretty much does everything. His Son created not just this world, but worlds without end. And he was God before that even happened. But he emptied himself of his divinity during his mortal probation. That's the whole point. Anyway, moving on here.
And yet in Mormonism, Jesus obviously was not the one who created the planet that his father lived on when he was a man, or the God before him, or the God before him. And so they have to limit these descriptions of Jesus.
Again, this is assuming infinite regress, which, again, lots of Latter-day Saints believe it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true, and it's not the textually correct reading of that particular source. We'll keep going from there.
Jesus to just having relevance to this planet. Elohim was once a man who lived on another planet, and he went through a process of following the gospel there. He was deemed worthy, and when he died, he was resurrected with his wives, organized this world. Notice I did not say created, because the Mormon God cannot create anything ex nihilo, out of nothing or into nothing.
Okay, the wives thing, yeah, I never heard of that. Like, sure, we definitely believe God has at least a wife. Like, it's possible he has more than one wife. I don't know why that would bother people. Abraham can have multiple wives, but God can't. Okay, whatever. But this last point about ex-nihlo is important, because White is correct in saying that the Latter-day Saint God doesn't create ex-nihlo. He creates from pre-existing matter. And maybe I'll put this in the description, but there's plenty of sourcing both in and outside of the church showing that this is probably the better way to read the Bible. And it certainly metaphysically offers us a lot of advantages that have been plaguing Christianity for a long time in terms of philosophy, but that's kind of another subject.
Can only organize pre-existing matter, but he organized this earth, and he begets spirit children with his wives. The first begotten of his spirit children was Jehovah, or Jesus. We all are the spirit brothers of Jesus. Each one of us, you and I, we were also begotten by Elohim and one of his heavenly wives in a spiritual pre-existence. Another one of the offspring of Elohim was Lucifer.
Is Jesus the...
Okay, so real quick, duh. In the Bible, Lucifer is identified as a son of God. What's Jesus Christ's title? Is it just a title? What is his identity? Who is he in relation to the Father? Is Jesus Christ not the Son of God? Lucifer, Son of God? Jesus, Son of God? What is it we call two males who have the same dad? I don't know. I don't know what these guys call them. I don't know. In English, we usually say brothers, but
spirit brother of Lucifer and you and me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Was Jesus Lucifer's brother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lucifer's brother?
Jesus.
You've got to be kidding me. Oh, I gotta see that again. That creepy music. You'd think he just like killed someone. The way that they zoom in with that creepy music. Okay.
Lucifer's brother?
Yes.
And
As you are his brother.
Lucifer's brother?
As you are Jesus' brother. All children of your heavenly Father.
I can't stop. Oh man. That is too funny. That is too funny. Oh, okay, I've got to finish this review. I'm only 6 minutes in here. You got to be kidding me. Okay, well, that was entertaining. Clearly, they're not fans of the idea. So thank you for watching part 1 of my review. Make sure that you catch part 2 as well. You'll get more of my commentary, more of my thoughts, more cringe, and more laughs. Also, don't forget to please hit like and subscribe if you're interested in more content, and leave a comment below telling me your thoughts, positive or negative. It really helps the show. Thank you. Catch you next time. We just completely massacre these scriptures, completely remove them from context, and do so with an audacity that is just unfettered.